we are going to make our way right now to Bangkok. I think Sombat is already here, so let's bring him up to the screen so people can see him. Hi, Sombat.
Hello, Pauline.
How are you?
I'm very good.
Thanks
Good
for
morning
being with
to
us
you.
today. It's really nice to see you again.
Yes, me too. My pleasure to be here.
It's been quite a while. So before we dive into our conversation, as I didn't want to explain too much about what you're doing because I know we are going to talk about it right now, but could you maybe start with a short introduction about yourself?
Sure. So I am office designer. So I start my career 20 years back in Singapore as kind of like interior designer, specialized in office only. And I'm being designing office for like hundreds of office in the past 20 years. Recently, I set up the company called Paperspace in Singapore, and then we expand to Bangkok and Manila in 3 years. So what Paperspace do is mostly we design office for multinational clients like Google, Facebook, Netflix across Asia Pacific. So that is what we are doing.
I think you have a few slides that you wanted to show us. Do you want to bring them on already?
Yep, it's okay. Yeah, so that's kind of a glimpse of my work. You can flash that.
Yeah. Dimitar, do I need to do something?
Sombat should put the presentation on from his side if he wants to click through, or we can load it from Google Drive.
Okay.
Okay.
So I have to put.
I can do it. No, do you want me to do it?
Please.
Meanwhile, maybe I'll just say a few words about Paperspace because it's one of the really interesting co-working spaces that we've seen in our journey. And every time we talk about co-working spaces, it's not only a workplace, but also a place for collaboration. We always mention this co-working space because for us it embodies the idea of co-working. You go there, you work on your own things, but also you collaborate and share information and help with the other members. And I think this is very important. And at Orgatech, we did a presentation of the book and we mentioned Paperspace, and it was really interesting that there was an Indian lady she's an architect between Canada and India, and she was like, "Oh my God, this is so cool and like so nice." And unconsciously, she said she always wanted a place like that, but she never saw it, like never thought about it. And she was like very enthusiastic about making her own co-working space for architects. So I think places like co-working spaces and places like Paperspace are really inspiring others. So it was really nice to see. And I'm gonna add the presentation now. Yeah. Cool. Yeah. And I'm gonna remove myself and looking forward to that presentation.
Yeah. So this is me. Okay, sorry, thank you. And then you can go to the next slide.
Yeah.
So this is our client. So as I mentioned, we design office for most multinational clients like Google, Facebook, Netflix, Shopee, Lazada, Airbnb. I myself, as I doing that for the past 20 years. You can go to the next. I just have a few like example. So this is the office that we design for Facebook. So I mean, every time we design a new office for the client, I mean, we need to understand the characters, the identity of the client. So Facebook said that they are, I mean, in the past 10 years, they are not there for the complete the journey yet. They're just starting the journey. So they want the office to look kind of like incomplete. So it's reinforced to their thinking they have like long way to go. So the office like convey that message. Versus to Google, if you go to next slide, Google believe in imagination, creation, innovation. So they believe that actually the big idea doesn't come from the desk. It is like rarely when you go to the office, open your laptop, Excel, and then you have the big idea. Is not happen that way. Mostly people do think the big idea when they are in a very peaceful space or very inspiring space. So we designed Google Office to serve that. So this is the latest project we did for Google in Bangkok. So you can see that actually the wall on the right hand side is the actual model of Bangkok city protruding out
Wow.
from 2 dimension to 3 dimension, and a part of the Bangkok city, some of the building is formed to be a Google logos is that way. So there's a lot
Wow,
of
that's
story
really
to
cool.
the space. Yeah, and then the ceiling is the river actually. So is the mostly actually is the upside down city. So the river is on the top. So when you walk to all the meeting rooms, all the graphic is upside down. So you're actually seeing world from different angle. Yeah. Maybe the next one
Nice.
as a
Yeah.
glimpse. Yeah, I think that's yeah. So this is the author process we did for Google in Manila, but this is a we are talking about like jungle, digital jungle where people going out to the world doing hiking to get their inspiration, and so we just put a question: what if we put that inspiration back to the office? People come to the office to get their own inspiration rather than going out. So the office is kind of designed to be, translating that message. Yeah, I think that's a quick sample of what I do.
Oh, did you want me to go to the next slide or not yet?
I think it's okay. I think you can start
Okay,
putting your question. Yeah.
great. So thanks for giving us an overview. It's really helpful to understand a little bit more of your work. One of the things I want to ask you is, how have you seen office design change since the pandemic?
Hmm. I think the past 2-3 years is where people changing the way they look at the office. I think before that, right, office used to be everything for companies. I mean, they're putting all the functions, all the requirement to the office. Everyone has to come to the office to do their work. I think that's at least majority of the company, because I think is kind of evolved from actually industry evolution era where everyone is coming to the factories to do their own work as a the assembly line. So office kind of evolved to that moment to, I mean, where we are working now. But in the past 2 years, right, I mean, we realized that actually we can't go to the office because of the pandemic, and we start realizing that actually some of the work doesn't need to be done in the office. So the what pandemic changed is it just uh, it just changed everything. I mean, whatever rules that I learned in the past 70 years has been changed in the past 2 years. So the office is changing their own purpose as well. So we work with a lot of clients where they said that actually the staff doesn't come to the office to work. They come to the office to brainstorming, collaborate, to get their idea, to get the bonding in terms of human interaction, because they can do work from home, but these kind of activities can be done through virtual. So they need a physical office to do that. So the purpose has changed. So that's what I'm seeing.
And do you think this will become an even larger trend in the coming years?
Yes. Uh, if we study back in the history, right? I mean, in the past 100 years, actually, when there's some big change to the world, office has changed themselves to adapt to that. So from industrial revolution, so we have the very first office, and then we have the open plan. We have the cubicle farm where everyone is sitting in the cubicle like a rat, and then and it changed, and this pandemic is going to change, I mean, the way we work, I mean, as a big trend for sure, but just slowly. I mean, in the uh, big company, I think they already start doing that.
You actually did back in 2020 a great presentation for us on the topic. I'll share it in the event recap where you were talking about the office, how the office has evolved over the last 100 years. I want to continue discussing because you're featured in our book, not just with Paperspace, but actually with Paperwork, the co-working space you founded in 2016. And I want to ask you, what led you to start a co-working space?
It started when I work with my ex company for a certain of years, and then I want to start my own design studio. So I resigned, and then I don't have anywhere to work, so I try to work in a typical co-working space, but it doesn't really fit me. So I decided to build my own very first co-working space in order to, because I'm only one, I'm working alone, but I don't want to work in a very tiny 2 by 3 square meters office. I still want to work in a big space, but it's just too expensive to work alone in that. So I create my co-working space, so I can work, and then I can kind of doing some business on top of my space. So that's original of my co-working space journey.
And the primary audiences of Paperwork or Paperspace, Paperwork, sorry, are architects and interior designers. How do you cater to their needs?
We have kind of some special function that most co-working space that doesn't have that, which is like material libraries. So we do a lot of material sourcing, and no one has that function for us. And if you are a freelance, it's very difficult for you to reach out to that, because you have to call hundreds of suppliers to build that for you. And then mostly they don't entertain a freelance, they entertain only the big companies. And because we are Paperspace, we do design like a big clients also, so we can cater those materials like carpets, laminate, fabrics, lighting, those things. And here, if you are freelance and you work in Paperwork, you are able to access to that libraries like very easy.
Wow, as I remember, we saw it in Bangkok. It's quite a big room with everything. It feels like Christmas for architects and interior designers.
That's right. Right.
And do you tap into your community in any way to create bridges between the two companies that you run, which are Paperspace, which is the design studio or interior design studio, and then Paperwork, the co-working space for architects and interior designers?
I'm looking at those two elements as one ecosystem actually. So Paperspace using Paperwork, which is co-working space, as the showroom. So every time we pitch for the new project with the client, right, and we want to transform them from a very traditional office design to kind of a co-working Thai office. So we bring the client to Paperwork and show them this is actually how you work with the very agility like model, which is they can't picturize that in just only the rendering. So we show them the actual space. And on the other hand, right, when we have Paperwork tenant, sometimes they are very creative, and sometimes we collaborate with them for our own project also, because Paperspace, we do kind of, our business model is a little bit different from auto design firm. So we work with our a small design studios who is specialized in their field. Some studio they specialize in restaurant, some specialize in hotel or in offices. So every time we have the project, we kind of collab with them using their strengths and work together. And sometimes we met our partner in Paperwork.
That's really nice. And are you thinking of how many members do you have, because you've been existing for so long? So I imagine now you have a huge pool of people that you can work with. How do you choose those people?
I think it's like trust. So we can start doing a small project with them. And once they gain us the trust, I think we keep kind of feeding them work. And then it's only trust that and people choose us because we trust us as a client. So we work with those tenants because we trust them also. So it's kind of a business that based on trust for us.
And one of the other things I wanted to ask you, as we have people watching this now and thinking about the interior design of their co-working space or their office, what would you give them as a piece of advice to start with when they think about that topic?
Sure. So in my 20-year experience, right, I think office design is playing a big role to attract talent and maintaining them. That's why like Google, Facebook, Netflix spend millions of dollars in office design. So I think my advice is you have to maximize them using your office space to create your own value, to create your own characters story, attract talent or tenant if you are a co-working space operator, because there's a power of design behind that. And if you don't need to spend like expensive cost if you do it wisely, but pay attention to your own design, and you will get the most value of your space through that. That's gonna be my advice.
That's a great piece of advice. Thank you so much. I think, was there anything else you wanted to share out of your presentation, or were you done?
I think I'm done.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much, Sombat, for sharing so much with us. We'll be also adding links to Paperspace and to Paperwork so that people can check the work you're doing, but also can check your co-working space. If anybody passes through Bangkok, I think they should definitely pay you a visit, just because the space is so nice and your team is also amazing. So we will add all those links. And yeah, thank you for being with us today.
Thank you so much for having me today too.
Have a nice day. See you, Sombat.
You too. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
All right.
Cool. Very nice presentation, and good to talk with people who have so much experience that just based on the conversation, you can start thinking about the social spaces, workspaces, and how people design them. And I'm always like super glad to hear from Sombat because he created something very unique, and it's always good to dive into his thinking and knowledge. And when people explore what they've built with the co-working space and the projects they've worked on, they will really see how this thinking extrapolate into that field.
Yeah, and actually, one thing I realized I forgot to do. Can you put my screen back to one thing I forgot to show is actually his space. I realized how it looks. We've been there, I think it was in 2017 or 18. And for us, it was really amazing to see a co-working space for architects and interior designers. And as Sombat explained, having this material room that all those people could access to work on their own projects felt also like a tremendous value add to any architects or interior designers seeking to work on their own projects and not having access to those resources. So that was a really, really nice space to visit. And as I was also saying, they are also part of our book. So if you guys have the book, you can read the story of Paperspace on page Paperwork, sorry, because the co-working space is called Paperwork, on page 307, where we actually interviewed Sombat a little bit further on their story and on how it all came together. I just want to show you. Yeah. Sorry, guys. No, wait. Yes, here. Where you can see the story of his space. And actually, the quote he highlighted, which I want to read because he just said something very similar. He said, "We invited our ecosystem of business partners, suppliers, designers, and clients to a workplace transformation forum where we discussed the new ways of working, and our co-working space was the most concrete way for them to experience what we meant. So for me, it's also amazing to see how he uses the space to show with a concrete example what co-working is as a model and in the way it functions. So Sombat, thanks a lot for sharing all of this with us today. I think we'll soon be moving on. Maybe we can take a little breaky of like 3 minutes until Joanna comes.
Maybe I can add also something.
Yeah.
Because now there's a big talk about a crisis coming, and co-working spaces are supposedly to do good in crisis, but what can traditional businesses take from that, and like especially take from this co-working space that is a community at work, a community of different professionals in the same field, but they help each other, and just the collectiveness of them makes them better, like gives them more opportunities, and not only to provide them a space to work, place to network, and place to have events, but also a place to extend their homes and be somewhere social at work, which is very important in times of like crisis, and when there's economies going down, when people have less work. Go to places where people collaborate, where people get together, where people discuss ideas, because from one thing to another, either you discuss idea with someone and you start collaborating, or someone discuss an idea with you and you start collaborating. This is a way for going forward and to create more value for your work, for your business, for your peers. And I think this is very important when people discuss co-working spaces, and specifically co-working spaces created for certain type of professionals, as the example here is with architects.